Welcome to Wisdom Within with Tina and Tanya. Today we have a really important topic, so stay tuned. We are going to be talking about when we get those intuitive nudges and it creates a lot of fear if we choose to follow them. So we're going to be talking about this topic in detail. So I'm excited to bring this to you. But first, Tina, will you help us clear the energy?
Sure. I have some Palo Santo and it's going to oh, go ahead and take a deep breath in. Allow yourself to come to center. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I needed that.
Me too.
It helps me I
Settle
get
in.
so excited and in my head, and then it just helps me return to my body and okay, we're
Yeah,
good.
that's how I am.
So let's talk about this topic of intuition because there's a lot of talk out there in the world of tuning into your intuition, developing, strengthening all those things with intuition. But there's not a lot of talk about the fear that can come with that, not just of listening and tuning in, but what if you get an intuitive nudge that is challenging or scary or something like that? I think this is a really important topic that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about.
Right. I agree. And how many times have we gotten this intuitive nudge or all of a sudden we're like, "Oh," and then we're like, "Oh no, I don't want to go there."
Yeah. And I feel like those are because they're the big ones, right? If it's just turn right here, we might be like, "Oh, that's weird. Why do I need to turn right at this corner? Okay, I'll turn right." It's just more that's kind of an instinctual quick nudge. But the ones that are really challenging are the things that say leave that job or speak up to your partner or leave a relationship or, they're bigger, weightier, meatier topics that we have and they can be scary. Um, have you had any experiences like that where you've had that come up?
Where I've had an intuitive hit that I'm like, oh no.
Like, oh, that's scary to follow.
I think I do. What happens with me too is a lot, and we've talked about this so many times in these videos, all these videos. Most people know that I don't like shadow work, and so that's kind of if you watch the videos, you know that I don't like. I'm good at surface level. I'm good at staying right there on the surface. And when I get those hits, they're often times they're the intuitive hit that is going to send me somewhere that I don't want to go, which could be, working with my, digging deeper into what's going on or those kinds of things. And so that's kind of the type of hits that I've had that really kind of scare me.
Well, and resistance, right? It's that is
Exactly.
where resistance is and where it
Yeah.
comes from.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
So what
I'm
about you?
well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was like, I hadn't actually thought about that as I was kind of like processing this idea. That's, yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think that that would resonate with a lot of people where it's like, I need to go deeper and uncover this, but there's like that, no, 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 I don't want to. I have had a very similar experience with that one time where I was in a relationship. It wasn't the correct relationship. And I recognized one day, and it was intuition, right? Was telling me, hey, listen, Linda, you're sending mixed messages. So I was saying, this isn't right. This is stuff I'm struggling with. I'm not happy in this way. And then I would talk myself out of it. And then it would be like, I was like, no, 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 it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. Nothing bad is happening in the relationship. It's fine. It's fine. So I kept trying to conform. And this wasn't anything even to do with him. He wasn't trying to do this, not a toxic human. I was doing this to myself where I was trying to conform so I didn't rock the boat. but my intuition was like, you're not meant to conform. This isn't correct for you. So you're sending mixed messages. One hand, you're saying this isn't okay, but then you're conforming on the other and being fine and basically sweeping it under the rug. And I did that for quite a while. But the main intuitive nudge was you need to sit down, you need to decide what it is that you want and all of that. And that was what I was totally resisting.
Mhm.
I think because underneath I knew that if I sat down and got really clear, it meant that the relationship, it was time for it to end. And I intuitively, I think I knew that, but that was the part I didn't want to see. So I
Mhm.
was like, no, 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 I don't want to, I don't want to. I'll do it later. I'll do it later.
Yep. Yep. That's exactly where I go with it. When I have those kinds of things, it's like, and I shouldn't say I always do, but my tendency is to not listen and be like, oh no, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm gonna stay in this at this level and I'll be okay. And intuitively your gut's saying, no, you need to do a little bit more than that. Or you need to, you know, change what you're doing, or you need to be, I mean, even like as far as like, um, so food's on my mind these days because I've had a gluten issue. And even as far as that goes, intuitively, my body, or I know intuitively what I should be eating, but, and we can follow our intuition as far as eating, but, stuff tastes good and you know what I mean?
We'll just let it slide this one time. It'll be
Yeah,
fine.
it'll be okay. That tastes good. I'm gonna try it or whatever. You know what I mean? So yeah. Um, and I lost my train of thought after that, but
Well, I think that's important because talking about food and following our intuition, I think explaining that example of what happens when we don't can, because you just went through some health, we were down for about a week based on that.
yeah, yeah, because I chose to not, well, so I have gluten, I have celiac, and so I uh have to eat a gluten-free diet. And when I um don't eat at my own house, I never know that if it is going to be gluten free or not. And sometimes I go against my own, intuition just because I'm like um, trying to not rock the boat, and then I'll eat that food. And yeah, I got pretty sick over that because of not paying attention and not, listening to my that inner knowing what I knew that I should have took my own food with me, and I knew, because that's what I used to always do, and now I don't do it anymore. So
Mhm.
um and now I will start doing that again because that one was a hard one. I've had a lot of reactions, but that one was one of the worst ones I've had in a long time. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, there's that cosmic 2x4 over the head. And that's kind of what happens too, right? Is we we go along our way, and we're like, we're getting all these intuitive nudges and we're getting all these hits and we're ignoring them. And finally, one day, something happens, and maybe it like with you with the relationship, maybe you would have gone along, and all of a sudden he was like, okay, we're done, I can't do this anymore. And so, and there's that cosmic 2x4 over the head because you're sitting here not listening to those little intuitive nudges that we get. And then we get that, that whack across the top of the head where, that's all of a sudden either we're, like me, I was down sick, or we've lost our job, or we've lost our spouse, or we've lost the, whatever, so it can be that big. We go to the hospital, we end up in the hospital. So it can be that big if we keep ignoring those little intuitive nudges that we have,
I
I
think
think.
yeah, you're right. And I think that one one thing is if we get to the point where we ignore them so often, we don't even hear I really feel like it's we don't even hear it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's gone. I don't believe it's like it's not like our intuition and that part of us is going to punish us, right? And be like, well, since you don't listen to me, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I don't believe that's a thing at all. Um, but I do believe that we can become kind of deaf to it. So, for example, the other day, um, Brandon was at my house. My dog was outside barking, and he said, "Is that your dog?" And I hadn't even heard it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it is." I don't even care. It is, I've tuned it out. It didn't even bother me. Finally, he gets up and he goes and knocks on the window and tells my dog to be quiet. And I kind of chuckled because I'm just, it's one of those things where I'm so used to it that I've tuned it out. It's kind of like when your kids are itty bitty and you hear mom, 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 and it takes
Yeah.
them 100 times before you actually hear it. I feel like that
Mhm.
is very much our intuition and how it speaks to us is it's probably talking a lot more than what we're receiving. And so we're not paying attention and it just becomes another piece of the background noise. Or
Mhm.
our head is spinning with all the shit we have to do and all the things that are going on in our head that we're not actually hearing it. So people say often, well, I can't connect to it or I'm completely disconnected with my intuition. And I'm like, no, you've become tone deaf to
Mhm.
it. It's time for you to start creating some space so that you can actually hear it come through. And it starts by, oh, I heard it this one time. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. Now I know what it looks like, and I'm going to start telling myself to listen some more.
Mhm.
Um, have you had experience like that too?
Oh yeah, when I was in my 30s, I assume 20s, 30s, I had no idea. I never listened. I didn't know. I mean, I've always been pretty intuitive, as far as things go, but when it came to the big things, I didn't listen. I was like, I would always get these hits and then I would be like, after the fact, be like, oh yeah, I guess I should have listened. I knew that was coming, you know. And as I've gotten older, I've learned to, you know, listen more, but I mean, I think it's probably part of the human condition, we still have those, we get in our mind and we're like, we get that nudge and then we're like, oh, that can't be right. That can't be right, And so we have to, um, yeah, I feel like I always say we have to, but I don't want to say, I'm like, no, we don't have to, but it's a good idea to, you know, tune in a little more and maybe, sit with that and think about how we're not listening or, we did hear that or we did hear it and then we ignored it and then this happened and then we're like, oh, I knew that was going to happen, so maybe it's a good idea to listen better the next time or to pay closer to attention the next time.
Mhm.
So
I definitely want to go into why we ignore it, but first I want to go back to one thing that you just said because um I don't remember how you phrased it, but like reflecting on, and I think that's so key to reflect on our life. Look
mhm,
back. I'm a big fan of being present in the moment. And I don't like to reside in our past because that's where depression lives, but I
mhm,
love to go back to our past for lessons. So when we look back at our past, because a lot of times when we're thinking, I don't get intuitive hits or I don't really have that, that's something that you get, not me,
mhm,
or whatever. When we start to really look back at our past, like what you were saying, where it's like you reflect back and go, oh, yeah, I knew. There's something there that is a knowing that you had, however that came to you, that's how you start to recognize your intuition and how you recognize it's coming to you. For me, it was knowing that I was in a relationship that wasn't correct. And I couldn't, some of it I could see in the moment, but most of it I couldn't, right? Because when we're in it, we're in it. So
mhm,
now as I reflect back, I look at how I always knew something within me always knew that relationship was temporary. And I know I knew it because here's the actions I took with that. Like I can see how I did this little dance with that individual where it was not letting them in too close, but it was just, it was very different. And I can recognize what that looked like. And now I know that there was a knowing within me that it was temporary. It was never meant to be forever. And so that's one of those things I can look at hindsight. I have other experiences in my life that are they're very different ways of knowing, but it's the same thing, right? When I look back, I knew this was going to happen. I was telling you just before we jumped in that I was married, we were moving, we were getting ready to build a house. And as we drove up this drive one day, I get this instant hit of this is where I'm going to live when I get divorced. And this was during happy times. And I freaked out. What the hell? You can't think that. I mean, I was like really shocked with that. Sure enough, that was exactly where I was living when we ended up getting divorced. So in the moment, it terrified me, but I was able to like reflect back on that later and recognize that that was actually a gift to me to just that never went away in the back of my mind. I knew and I was like, okay, okay,
Mhm.
kind of help me with that. So I think that reflecting, if you, especially if you're not sure how intuition is speaking to you, look back. Did you know that was not the right relationship? And I think that requires a lot of courage too,
Mhm.
because I
Yeah.
want it to be their fault. I don't want
Yep.
to be, it's not my fault. I'm blameless. It's
Yep.
not my fault. It's their fault. And if
Exactly.
I go back and I actually, with 100% honesty, look at that, I knew that wasn't the right relationship for me, or I knew it was time to go and I stayed too long. Like all those different things come into play. And it's not about blaming yourself, it's about awareness of when that came in so that you can take ownership of your own choices and intuition.
Right.
And that's hard.
That that's probably the hardest part of it all because when we're that honest and um that true to our or listening to that um what am I trying to say? When we're being that honest with ourselves and taking that responsibility, that's what I'm trying to say. Then that is the hardest part of it all.
Mhm. Well, and I think it's important to recognize that we're not taking on other people's treatment or other people's decisions. And it's not about blaming ourselves for anything. That's not it. And of course, in every situation, there are so many more dynamics than that. But
Mhm.
if you can take ownership 100%, even for this amount of time, just a short amount of time, so that you can see where your choices are. It's not about choosing right or wrong. It's just about being able to see the situation. So go
Right.
at it with a neutral place, not it's my fault, their fault, his whatever.
Yeah.
It's just neutral for information gathering. Then you can really see the intuitive nudges that you got that maybe you ignored or put on the back burner or silenced or whatever. And as a result, here's how things shifted.
Mhm.
There's so much growth and beauty in that, though. Those have been
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
life-changing moments for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even for me too. Me who doesn't like doing that. When
I'm
I
not going
do.
to say I love it. I mean, that is shadow work, right? But
Yeah.
um
But yeah, when we do take that little bit of, even like you said, just that little bit of time to our responsibility and and just acknowledge it and sit with it and see, that's where the growth happens, is seeing because you're looking at it with a different perspective. You're taking that different view, and that gives you more to work with, right? And helps you to grow. So,
and I think that kind of helps lead us into that other piece of it is why do we not follow our intuition? Sometimes I do believe that maybe we just miss the nudge
mhm,
or dismiss the nudge as, oh, that's my imagination, or that's just fear. I don't know. Like there's a lot of different ways that or maybe we truly just don't even, we're not aware, whatever. But a lot of
mhm,
times I feel like we have a fear of following that intuition because it comes with change.
yep.
Yeah. Like part of us wants to be free and live our lives and be our fullest expression. But in order to do so, that caged version of us
Has to
that's
change.
unfree
Yep.
has to let go.
Hmm.
And our intuition can lead us through there, but that can also be scary.
That can be very scary. Change is hard for anybody, right? We see change and we hear that there's going to be a little change in anything, and we panic, oftentimes. And it yeah, you're talking right straight to me here with this one because
Sorry, not sorry. That was not
because
my intent.
yeah. Because yeah, when we get those intuitive nudges that we need to be doing the things that we need to do, we want this freedom, we want this growth, we want to move in, in different ways. We want to go do the things, we want to, get out of that little box. And then we get these nudges to do, oh, if you did this one thing, that would help you to start moving out of that box. But you're like, that fear sets in and you're like, oh, I don't know if I can come out of that box. And then so then you start ignoring the intuitive hits because that fear kind of takes over, and we get scared of listening, or we get scared of what if what if I did listen to that nudge? What if I did take that step? What would, what would I have to do? What kind of change would I have to make? And that is scary, and that is hard.
And
But that is the where the growth is too.
hmm and I think that, like, exactly what you're saying, it is because intuition requires action.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little bit of us that intuitively knows that it requires action, um, or maybe even inaction, depending on the
Mm-hmm.
situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't love it when it tells me to sit and wait. I'm like, damn
Mm-hmm.
it. But it can very much, like, it does bring with it an energy of action, an energy of change, of choice, of decision. You always have a choice, but it's not, it doesn't always have to be uncomfortable. But even like, take the thing of food, right? We started with food, like, the little bit of intuition is that's not good for you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
um that discomfort, that's uncomfortable to make that choice to follow that intuition because it's the people we're around, or I want to be lazy, or I just want this because it feels like it doesn't, it's not all death and destruction, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's have the damn chocolate or whatever, and we
Right.
tell ourselves that.
Right.
So sometimes it's little like that, and sometimes it's big, like, hey, you're going to get divorced when you live here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
those things are big. So, but regardless, it always is requiring action. Don't eat that, or eat this, or fill in the blank, right?
Mm-hmm.
With whatever that nudge can be. And I think that is, knowing that we have action with it is what's hard too. Like, it's going to require me to take some steps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's the yeah. And I know. Okay. Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave it there.
I'll
Um,
leave it there.
well, and I think the important thing to remember, though, is even though it does require action, it's not always right now in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
It can be, there is such thing as divine timing, right? So maybe the intuitive nudge is just letting you know this is the path, this is the direction to go, but it doesn't mean you have to go 0 to 60 in point two, or,
Right. Right.
I mean, the nudge that I got that this is where I'm going to live when I get divorced, it was years later before that happened. It wasn't, I didn't just like, okay, bye.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just, I feel like, very much a gift of planting that seed that this is what's going to happen. Um, And then even, with different experiences that I have in my life, some of them have been take action right now. The instinct that kicks in, but some of them are like, start building this practice,
Hmm.
start meditating,
Hmm.
and those are not like, they are life saving, they are life changing, but they're not radical.
Hmm.
And those little things that I have followed have really helped make huge difference in my life too. So I think some of it, when we can kind of like take a step back and take just like we have instant gratification, we have this anticipation of instant gratification.
Right.
We also have an anticipation of instant action being required, and that's not always the case.
No, and that's true. And so remembering that and allowing yourself to if you do get that hit, if like you said, this is you got that hit years before you had the divorce. um if you do get that hit, just know that you can just like, okay, leave it there and maybe come back to it at another time, or maybe even when you're ready, because sometimes we get those hits and we're not ready yet, and that's okay, you know. And we don't have to take that action right then. And
Mhm.
maybe you never will be ready, but maybe, but it's always there, you'll know. Just take a note of it, and just, you know allow yourself to move through that and do do it in your time, and not the immediate action.
Mhm. I love that. And remembering that we do get to choose for, okay, maybe there is an instinct of turn here, stop there, go do this. Like, some things are very important for us to
Mm-hmm.
follow, and we know those because those are almost like a life-saving instinct that kicks in. Um, but there are quite a few where we do get to decide. And, maybe it's, you know, quit your job and go do this, that's where we really get to be like, okay, is this an idea that is actually just because I'm in a bad mood, or I'm not
Right.
happy with these people, and or whatever, is this really correct for me? Where we can kind of sit with it and allow our nervous system to kind of process and see. And maybe it's not right in this moment, but maybe it's a little bit of a nudge to be like, this is almost complete for you. It's time for you to start working on a next step, a next plan. It can be a little bit of that, where it's like, hey, just a heads up,
Mm-hmm.
your time at this office is coming to
Short.
close. Yeah, it's almost complete. So in the meantime, why don't you come up with let's start looking at other things that you might want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
The more we resist those types of things, I feel like the more anxiety and angst we have that comes with
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
So if there is an intuition around something completing, whether it be job, relationship, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
even health, right? Then I think those get louder the closer you get to
Mm-hmm.
complete,
They
like
do.
the due date.
Yeah. So speaking of health, um I have been, I mean, I've just kind of let myself go for several years now. And over the past year, maybe 2 years, I've been getting these hits that it's like, Tina, it's time to, you have got to take care of yourself. You've got to do things differently. You've got to, and I've chosen to ignore them. And, like, especially with the eating, I've chosen to do my thing, and, and then I get another, Tina, and it's like, it's just this continual little hit of, you've got to take care of your health. You've got to take care of your health. And it just keeps coming up, coming up, coming up. And we had that fire, and we were displaced for a while. And I, during that time, it was hitting me really hard that I needed to start working on my health. And then I ignored it, and, and then I got hit pretty hard with this one. And it was like, Tina, you know, that was my cosmic 2x4. but it is those things. It's like they just keep coming up. And those are the things that maybe you need to start taking action on. Because if they keep coming up, there is a reason that they're coming up, right? And
Mhm.
it's that intuitively we know. I've known for since I quit taking care of myself, I've known intuitively that I need to be doing these certain things for myself. And I've chosen to not. Um, but when you can start, it's all in the maybe not allowing yourself to go like 5 years like I have, but maybe allowing yourself to maybe once, maybe twice, but start listening when you start getting those that keep coming up, because there are those things when we intuitively, that pop up intuitively, that we know and we know and we know, and we just choose to ignore, and we just keep on. And those are the things that probably do require action.
Mhm. I worked with an individual one time who was very resistant and a little spicy to those inner, I call them intuitive hits. That
Mm-hmm.
was not their language for it, but almost like the resistance was like, I've already done that. I've tried it before. It didn't work for me. I'm not doing it again, kind of a thing. Um, and for me, it's like, okay, where you're having that resistance, that is your invitation to look at the issue. Okay, maybe you have done it before and it didn't work. So maybe you need a new avenue. Well, I've tried everything already. Okay. No, you, number one, I know for a fact you have not tried absolutely everything. And if you're one of those people listening who's like, yes, I have, no, you have not.
Exactly.
And, or maybe, and, or maybe you're listening to the wrong people. You're listening because that is something that I've recognized within me that is, I'm following in the past, less so now. In the
Mm-hmm.
past, I've been following the recipe from other people, things that have worked for them that truly don't resonate with me. They
Mm-hmm.
might work for me. I mean, if I like food and nutrition, maybe, or movement, yeah, it'd probably work for me, but it doesn't feel correct for me. But I could force myself to do it their way, and I might or might not get results, but it's forced and it's not, that's not sustainable, right? So what people can have a tendency to do is not do anything because those ways haven't worked for me before. And it's not about always searching, it's coming within, right? Instead of I keep searching for the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, and it's not working and it's not working. Yeah, shut all that shit out. This is time for you to figure out what that is. And it's very uncomfortable to be in the unknown. That's where I am right now with some of it, right? Where I'm unsubscribing for all of these ways of doing things that are not aligned with me, which leaves me with, okay, then what is? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
truly don't know yet because I have to I have to figure that out, right? If all of these aren't working and I'm done with all of it and it makes me want to puke, then what is correct for me? And the only way for me to figure it out is to trial and error a little bit and sit and meditate on it and kind of work through some of those things. But what we do quite often is we just stop. It's
Mm-hmm.
like none of these things work, so I'm done.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Been there, been
Mhm.
there, done that.
Currently
And
there. Well, working through that, I guess, is how I would
yeah,
say.
and that is because going back to the health thing, the food thing. I know I have, I'm always getting, like my daughter, she does this to me too, but I'm always getting people tell me, oh, you should follow this diet, or you should follow that diet, and or you should do this thing or do that thing. And I know intuitively and from experience what works for my body. I know what foods I can eat. I know it, what is going to not cause, I get rashes sometimes. I'll eat food. And I know the foods that are causing, for the most part. Every once in a while, something will pop up and I'm like, oh shit, what was that? but for the most part, I know. And um it's all that you know, so in that I ha- create that plan for myself. I know what exercises work for me, although I know that I should be doing weight bearing exercises that I don't want to do, or I should be doing yoga because I know that works for me. I know it's good, but I don't like doing it. So I go for my walks because they're fun. But, um, you know, that's the big part of it too, is like going within, listening to yourself, listening to that inner knowing, and understanding what is best for you. And that's, those action steps. That's what, when we can stop and do that and take stock and, move through it. I know in other parts of my life, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. It's like, yeah, I want the recipe. I want somebody to tell me what to do. But it's like I know that I have to do it my own way, and I have to come up with that way that is going to work for me.
Mhm.
And if I probably listened to my intuition on that, I would probably be better off, because I would, you my intuition's going to tell me, but I don't want to listen sometimes.
Well,
Get
I
that
think
stubborn head.
it is, but I always look at like what's the deeper? Is it really stubbornness or is it that
That fear.
because who am I? Like
Yeah.
like in order for us to
Yep.
move into that phase. I love it because this is my favorite card. Well, one of my favorite cards in the tarot. It's the death card, right?
Mhm.
In order for me to step into this next chapter and truly go after what it is that I desire and want to manifest and bring in, this current version of me kind of does really have to die. It's allowing this personality, this identity that I have with who I am right now to be complete and to let it's just like ending a relationship, right? It is allowing that to be complete. It's not that it's not that we shun it and forever like we still have all the lessons, but it's like, okay, I'm not you anymore. I'm taking step to become this new transformed version of me. But that can be like, who am I? Who am I
Mhm.
if I'm well? Who am I if I'm successful?
Mhm.
I mean, we can be just as afraid of our success as we can of our failure. So there is part of that as well that comes with, I think, some of that resistance because we quickly see the end. We see this big, like, what if I am at my extreme health? Well, then I see all the things I have to give up. I see the relationships that might change. I see my schedule and my time all changing. Like we see that big picture and it's overwhelming and it's too much and we just freeze
Mhm.
or fawn, whichever. But when we can just look at today, I'm going to eat well today. I'm going to move today. I'm going to do this thing today and just
Mhm.
allow myself to go and not give up too soon. You know, we do it for 6 weeks and we're like, okay, it didn't do anything for me. I'm done. No, what if it did? What if you did it for a year, or
Mhm.
whatever? But that idea of the year is way too daunting, at least for me. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah,
So if
that is
it's,
for me too.
yep. So if it's just today,
Yep.
and then today it's just today, and then it's just today,
Mhm.
it feels much more today I can do that.
Mhm. And what if we, so this is,
Throwing it back at me.
yeah, what if that, happens with the business, or with our, because both of us were trying to grow a business. What if that's you know, how we decided to go about doing our business? And, one day, today, I can do all of these things that that are going to move the needle. Those things that are going to move the needle, not the things that are, you know, keeping us busy, but those things that are going to move the needle. I can do those things today and maybe tomorrow, and, and just keep it one day at a time like that. And we could,
Or you know what? We're on a
oh,
marathon.
yep.
Yep.
That's what that was exactly how I started running my half marathons when I started running because I started off walking and I probably weighed about as much as I do now at that time. And I started off walking and I was doing 3 miles a day. And then I jogged and I jogged from, so I would see there would, okay, I'm walking. I'm like, okay, I'm going to jog to that telephone pole. So I jogged to the telephone pole. And then I would go a little bit further and I would jog to the next telephone pole. And before I knew it, I was jogging a mile and then, 3 miles and then 6 miles. And then pretty soon, 4 miles was my short run. And, I was on to 10 miles, and so, yeah, that's how we run a marathon.
Keeping our
One
end
step at a
goal
time.
like
Yep.
achievable. It's
Yep.
just there. And then
Yep.
it continuing to stretch
Yep.
in small increments. Because,
Yep.
yeah, had you started with a half marathon,
Nope. I
you
never
wouldn't
would have made it.
have, I wouldn't have even started.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. It'd have been,
if that was
yeah.
the end goal, I'm like, no, I'm out. I don't
Yep.
even
That
want
wasn't
anything to
my
do with
goal
that.
when I started. My goal was to start, I was just going to start jogging. And then my sister mentioned a half marathon. I'm like, oh, I'll try. Maybe I'll see if I can do that. So I started with 3Ks. I would, or 5Ks. I mean, I would do the 5K, the 3 mile runs. And then I moved on to the half marathons.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
I think with some of these, when we get stuck in this, it's about shifting mindset too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's a simple reframe, like what you were just saying, where it was like, well, maybe I'll try it. Um, so even going from, because I listened to something recently where they talked about if you say I don't know, you shut, like your brain considers that a complete answer. So
Mm-hmm.
it shuts off its creativity that can normally help you solve that problem. So instead of I don't know, because there are times where we really don't know in that moment. But instead of saying, well, I don't know, it's I'm open to knowing. Or what if I did know? What would that look like? Or, just kind of creating that slightly different phrase in the mindset. So, whatever the resistance phrase is, I can't do that. I've tried it already. Whatever those things may be, that's too hard. I don't know, pick one that builds that resistance to our intuition and just see if you can do a slight, doesn't have to be huge, just a slight shift in, okay, it maybe it's not too hard. Maybe it's hard, but maybe there's just one little element of that I can bring in. Maybe there's one little piece of that. I can start walking, or I
Mm-hmm.
can just jog to that telephone post, or whatever those things may be, because we start with, I can't do that. I don't know that. Well, yeah, that's probably true for you right in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
But what do I know today? What can I do today? Where have I seen shifts today? Like those little things can be really powerful. And it's those little things that change our mindset.
Yeah. And the with the mindset shift, and we're talking about intuition, um, I like that, changing that into a question or a being curious about, why, maybe why am I not listening to my intuition, or maybe what 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 would happen if I listened to my intuition, or did I really get that intuitive hit? Was that really, was that what that was? And just being curious about that, I think, is one way that we can really start tapping into our intuition a lot more. And I mean, curiosity is like um, key in a lot of ways, especially with your mindset. When we're shifting our mindset, we can be curious about, oh, maybe, I wonder what would happen if, you know,
Mhm.
then we can start kind of shifting the way that we think about those things, and shifting the way that, maybe we're shutting ourselves off from our intuition, and we can start shifting into, oh, what does it feel like when I get those intuitive hits and different things like that?
Mhm. I feel like curiosity is the antidote to all of our ailments in life, all of our
Yeah.
challenges in life.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
if we can develop that curious mindset, um, especially in the areas where we have struggle,
Hmm.
that can be so huge because it just allows us to be open to a different way
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
kind of got us stuck.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I love that. Okay, anything
Yeah.
else you can think of on this
No, I
kind of
think we
fear of
covered a lot.
intuition? I know,
Yeah, I
right?
think we covered a lot. I think we went a little outside of the intuition, but we do that often. So.
Yeah, it all works. But I think it's important because it does show why there's fear around following our
Mhm.
intuition because
Oh
we
yeah.
think that it has to, we've covered a lot of why that's there and what
Yeah.
that means and even like allowing that side of us to be complete
Hmm.
is can be scary and can create a lot of resistance because
Right.
like I said, who am I if I'm well? Who am I if I'm successful? Who am I if I'm independent or single? Or who am I if I don't have these diagnoses or whatever that can be um it's really just allowing ourselves to be even fluid in our identity as far as
Hmm.
it's okay for me to have that chapter be closed and step into the new one, which can be a little scary, a little
Right.
uncomfortable, creating some
Yep.
fear, but it's
Yep.
freaking amazing when you step into it.
Yeah. Yep. It is.
So,
And we all know that.
mhm. We know it here, but we have to actually
Yeah.
trust it and bring it here. It's part of that
Absolutely. Yep.
integration that we talked about on a
Yep.
previous episode where, um, yeah, it's time to integrate that
Yep.
for sure.
Totally. Yep.
All right. We feel complete on it.
I do.
I do too. All right.
Yeah.
Will you bring us back to the
I will.
grounded moment?
Okay. Take a deep breath in. Pull all the energy back into your body. Feeling the weight of your body in your chair. Oh, yes. Okay.
You. All right. So, with that, we want to remind you that we have a Wisdom Within toolkit that will help you take you deeper into these practices, really help you tuning to that wisdom within. Created by Tina and I, we've got lots of really good stuff in there. And it changes a little bit. So if you've already received that, make sure you keep checking because we add new and take some away per season and whatever. So check that out in the description below. Um, it really does help us if you can share this with others, point people to our channel. If there's anything that you have taken of value, like it, comment, subscribe, all the things. We really, really appreciate that. So with that, we will see you soon.
See you.